Hello, today we are going to discuss the another lecture on allowance factors, which is a part of production material management. Now in this, let's see what are the important issues as far as introduction to lecture is concerned here. Number one point here is determination of allowances is the most controversial part of our study. Now here, whenever we are doing production, there is always waste and there is always useful product. Two things are there. Now to see how much waste should be there and how much should be useful material should be there, that is the issue which is to be taken into consideration. And they said allowances. How much allowances should be given? Is it 1%, 2%, 5%, 10%, so on and so forth. So that work study has to be carried out, and that work study must be a part of allowances. But then it's a big problem. There is no definite rules regulation. There is no definite policy on that way. So they say it's allowances not most controversial part of work study. Let's see what is the controversy on the work study and what are we going to achieve that here. The fact that the calculation of allowances cannot be accurate. Number one issue is whatever you do, whatever best you do, you want to save the equipment, you want to save the material, you want to save everything, you want to economize, but then the calculation of allowances is very, very difficult, and whatever you do it cannot be that accurate as it is required. It is difficult to prepare a university accepted set of precise allowances. Again, since it is difficult, so it is very difficult to frame certain laws, certain regulations, certain rules to see how much allowances should be given in that case. There are a number of factors which will affect due to working conditions as discussed here, and now we are going to discuss here the allowances part. That means it depends upon number of factors, the work conditions, the individual labor and skilled, unskilled labor, and let's see what are the factors and what are the working conditions in which we can think of allowances. Factors related to individual. Now here we are talking individual worker, the person who is manufacturing items. So what are those here? Number one point is a thin, active, alert worker needs less attention. Now the person who is not very fatty, who is quite thin, very active in work and very alert worker, we need less attention because he will be able to make sure that whatever is going on, there is economy there, the wastage is less, so he needs less attention. Things will be much better. Second point here is obese, inept workers need more attention. Person who is very careless, who is just carefree person, and who is not having sufficient knowledge, who is not a skilled person. So for that we need to give more attention as far as allowances is concerned. Next is learning curve of every individual matters. Learning curve. Now a person who is going to be a part of manufacturing activity, how good, how knowledgeable, how skilled he is, how much his learning capabilities are the issues which must be taken into consideration, and that learning curve is very, very good. He will have a better production. Learning curve average, he will have average production, and so on and so forth. So it depends how intelligent, how active he is. Ethnic variations due to nature of work. Ethnic variations. Now the nature of work will change from a place to place. So there will be variations in temperature, humidity, which we are going to see in the next slides. So those are the issues which will take into consideration and decide that the variations which are there in the nature of work, how far they will affect the allowances. Factors related to the nature of work itself. Nature of work itself we are talking. So we are talking individual, now we are talking itself. Nature of, next point here is nature of industry. What type of industry? Is it a chemical industry? Is it textile industry? Is it electrical industry, electronic industry, and so forth? So depending upon the nature of industry, the work itself will be taken into consideration and then will decide as far as allowance is concerned. Attributes of the working situation. Now factors which are going to affect the working situation. Maybe light, maybe electricity, maybe air conditioning, maybe other issues which are there. So those are the areas which will contribute to the work study, and then allowances will be taken into consideration. Unavailable delays in the execution. So unavailable delays, there are certain delays which are possible within the control, but there are certain which are not within the control. So depending upon those delays which are inherent in the nature, depend upon that way, and that is how the allowances will be taken. The next is risk of spoiling or damage the production. Now the man is manufacturing an item. Now the item may be spoiled fully while production is going on. Maybe any reason, maybe because of plant, because of machinery, or maybe because of tools, or maybe by individuals' lack of knowledge, lack of skill. So there is a 100% risk on that way for spoiling and damage the product, and then we talk of allowances. Factors related to the environments. Now that was there. Now we are talking environments. How far the environments are playing the role as far as the allowances are concerned. Number one is heat, humidity, noise, dirt, vibrations, light, intensity, dust, and wet conditions. These are the various areas which are going to play a big role as far as allowances is concerned, and then environments will be accordingly adjusted, and you will find things will be wastage will be more, or wastage will be less, or no wastage. Amount of relations for the above. Now relations, I am talking heat versus humidity, noise versus dirt, vibrations, and light intensity. All these factors, if you take into consideration variations of the various factors, then that will decide about the allowances. Seasons with changing environments. Now there are seasons. Maybe rainy season. The rainy season may be worst. The equipment may be not functioning properly, and so on and so forth. So depending upon the season, winter season or summer season or the rain season or otherwise, will be affecting the environments and allowances. Now if we talk of these allowances, let's see how to calculate the allowances. As we say, it is very difficult. There are no universal laws, rules, regulations, but we have made some study here. There is some basic model of calculation of allowances. Kindly pay attention to this now here. Now we have number one is personal needs, number two is basic fatigue. Now these are two factors which are going to play a big role in allowances. Then we go to fixed allowances, and then we talk of variable allowances, stress, strain, and environmental. What we have discussed here, if you club these things together and go into that way, then we have got here, it goes, output goes into relaxation allowances and total allowances. Now if you take the output from these and then go to relaxation and total allowances, then on the other side where we are coming here, contingency allowances, policy allowances, special allowances, and then again they go to total allowances. And then we have got here the total allowances. What we are talking here, we go to, if you add basic time and if you add work control, what is going to be there. So that's how we are going to take into consideration the calculation of allowances, and then we will see how the product will be. Now here, as far as allowances is concerned, relaxation, how far you can relax the allowances, to what extent, to what level, and to what percentage. Now here, in addition to the basic time for the worker to recover from psychological and physiological effects. Now the person who is there, his psychology, his attitude, his knowledge, his skills, his mindset, and then psychological effects. These are the issues which are going to play a big role here for the worker to recover. Now if he is able to recover faster, the allowances will be much preferable, and if he is not going to recover faster, the allowances will be much harmful that way. So these are the additions which must be taken into consideration here. Then we are talking will depend upon the nature of job. Again, as I told you, we have discussed the nature of job: electrical, mechanical, textile, chemical, and so forth. So it will depend upon that as far as relaxation allowances are concerned. Specified conditional work. Conditional work has to be air conditioned environment, but then the company is not able to produce that in air conditioned environment. So as a result, you find here those conditions under which the individual is working, the workers are working, will have effect on the allowances. Now fixed allowances. Fixed allowances, there are two types of fixed allowances. Number one is allowances of personal needs, and second is allowances for the basic fatigue. Now as far as personal needs are concerned, will cater for the allowances. Then basic fatigue which is there with the person concerned, individual skills, knowledge, and all those things will come into that way, and you will have that way. So these are the allowances which are in the category of fixed, and then they will affect the production accordingly. Then there are certain variable allowances. Variable allowances means I am talking here poor environmental conditions, and then we are talking stress. Then we are talking stress and strain in performance job here. Now these are variable factors. Conditions are very poor, so the allowances will vary. Stress and strain, again depending upon the individual person, things will vary, and you will find the results will be totally different here. So here are we are talking relaxation allowances. It may be fixed allowances, it may be variable allowances under different categories. Then we are talking further relaxation allowance. We are talking here. What is the rest here? Rest pause. Now a worker who is working for 4 hours, if you continue work for another 4 hours, it will be very difficult for him to give you the desired results. So again, there is a system. In the system, it must be built. Then here the position is 10 to 15 break at mid morning and mid afternoon. It's a very important issue to keep a person fit, to keep a person psychologically and physiologically fit. We must give a pause, we must give a break of 10 to 15 minutes so that he becomes fresh. The whole energy gets re-energized. So by re-energized energy, his production will be much better, and you will find the results will be much better. Second issue is coupled with tea, coffee, cold drinks, and snacks. Now it's not the only break. In the break means he must fresh himself, and that freshness can come only You give a break, he has a glass of water, he has a cup of tea, he has a cup of coffee, or cold drink and snacks and stuff, so he becomes totally fresh and he gets re-energized. These are the issues which are a part of relaxation allowances, and you find if you study these allowances and they are catered for, production will be much better. Now here contingency and policy allowances. Now next we are coming contingency and policy allowances. What are these? Contingency and policy. Contingent allowances, here it is. It's a small allowance of time to be included in the standard time to meet legitimate and expected items work or days. Now here, this very small allowance of time here to be included. Now there is a standard time of production, and keeping that in mind here to see how legitimate, how he is going to work into that way in number of hours, number per day, or number of days for a month, and all those taken into consideration. So these are the contingencies which he has to take into consideration, and then these allowances will fall into the category of contingency. Again, I'm repeating: standard time to meet legitimate and expected time of work days. The standard time is there. Let's say production takes 40 hours, 50 hours. So keeping in mind here that 40, 50 hours, then he has to take into consideration that how much he can achieve the results as far as the contingency allowance is concerned. Next is precise measurement is uneconomical because of their infrequent and irregular occurrence. Now here we are talking, this is very difficult to calculate this. To be very precise here is not possible. It is, and if you want to do it, it is not economical. It becomes uneconomical, and then because they are not frequently exist, they are infrequent and they are irregular occurrence. So you cannot have a precise measurement. You cannot have a regular calculations of these allowances which are to be taken into consideration. So they are to be taken as and when required. Then comes policy allowances. Now after contingency, let's see what the policy allowances are. Policy allowances are an increment after other than bonus. Now here the policy, a person is getting normal salary, and then other than salary, once in a year he gets a bonus, 1 month salary or 2 month salary, depends upon that way. So here are the allowances, here are the factors which will change the mind of a person psychologically and physiologically, and you find better results. Then we are talking here are not a genuine part of this time study and should be used with utmost caution and only in clearly defined circumstances. Now these are not the actual things to be taken. This is not built in to be taken into consideration, only as when required here. So depending on the policy allowances, depending upon various other factors of the company's policy, you have to decide. Now next is special allowances. What are the special allowances? Special allowances here I am talking here for activities which are not normally part of the operation cycle but are essential to the satisfactory performance. Now these are special allowances which are not part of the operation cycle, not at all, but they are essential to the satisfactory performance. That means there are certain facilities, there are certain privileges which are to be given, and those privileges must come into consideration and must make sure that they are part of the performance, and as a result things will be much better, things will improve and will change that way. So these allowances will cater for. So these are the special allowances which must be taken into consideration. So either now coming to the here standard time. Now special allowances are what we have seen here, that is not as such, but they are the performance of work to be decided. Then number one factor is standard time. Now for manual job operation which includes contingency inclusive allowances, then we are talking here relaxation allowances. So these are the factors which are taken into consideration as far as the standard time is concerned. The manual job means operation which includes both contingency and relaxation allowances. Total time if the job should be completed at standard performance here, because as I told you, time has been fixed. Its item has to be completed, the production has to be completed. So keeping in mind here the standard time which is there, in that be it contingency or be it relaxation allowances must be taken into consideration to arrive at a final conclusion. Now work sampling technique. Now if what we have seen about the allowances, various type of allowances, now how do we carry on work sampling? What are the techniques which are we are taking into consideration sampling? So in that what we are going to discuss here, it's a work measurement technique in which large number of instantaneous observations are made at random intervals over a specified period of time of group of workers, machines and processes. Now here we take lot of samples, and those lot of samples are taken into consideration. At number of observations are taken during samples, and they are selected at random. There is no specific rule, there is no specific, so they are taken at random. And then again during 8 hours we may take 2-3 samples or more samples, and then if for a group of workers, for a particular type machines and the processes. So once you take this into consideration, then we are in a position to have work measurement, and then we are able to see that as far as allowances is concerned, how far they will be applicable. Now it's a method of finding the percentage occurrence of a certain activity by statistical sampling and random observation here. Now this I'm talking work sampling technique, is a method of finding the percentage occurrence. So we will find, once we take samples at random, once we decide there how much is there, what is to be taken on decision, then in this we will be able to find out that a particular activity, what is the percentage which is occurring into that process, and that percentage may be very high, that means the results are not good. If the percentage is average, the results will be average, and so on and so forth. So depending upon the sampling technique, we will find out the allowances. Now procedure, now how to do that? We must be able to find out, we must be able to do that way. So we are talking here, the work sampling procedure can be divided into following 3 phases. We have to calculate what are the allowances, we have to see how much is there to be taken consideration. So let's see what are the methods, what are the phases in which we calculate and we decide about the procedure for sampling procedure. So prepare of work sampling, here number 1 is a statement of the main objective of study. Now during the preparation of work sampling, we must take consideration main objective of study. What is the main objective? What all you are going to study? Then second issue is obtain the approval of the supervisor of the department in which the work sampling is to be performed. You must accept, you must talk to your supervisor and you must ask him that this is what we are going to do here. We are going to take these samples, we are going to take for this number of samples, number of times, and all those things. Then established quantities, measure of activity. Now quantity measure, once you take those samples, they have to be actually measured, they have to be calculated, and once you measure, once you calculate it, then you will find actual things what is going to happen. Established, then we have got here selection of training of personnel here. Now depending upon those things, we have to see the method of selection of the training of personnel who are going to work that way, and we want to make sure the production goes on very smoothly, very efficiently and effectively. Making a detailed plan for taking observation. Now keeping in mind here, we have to make a plan that observations which are taken, every hourly observations or every 2 hour observations and so on and so forth, and keep that procedure into mind and see, take various samples, and then you will find the results. Then measurement can be done here. Now further procedure, that I am talking performing work sampling. Now you have to see work sampling, how to perform that. Describing and classifying the elements to be studied in details. Now here you have to classify the elements, you have to classify the steps, you have to classify the procedure, and then this has to be studied in detail to perform or to procedure for the sampling. Now in that next come design the observation form. The form has to be designed in which the observation has to be taken, and those observations are to be jotted into that way. Then we have got determine the number of days or shifts required for the study. How many days, how many shifts we want to perform this one, we want to have the sampling. So it may be the daytime, it may be the night time, it may be general shift, all those has to be taken into consideration as far as design is concerned. Develop properly randomized times of observation. Random, it has to be developed, it has to be designed, random observations are taken at some hours, maybe morning hours, maybe afternoon hours, maybe evening hours, and that will give you the result. Observing activity and recording data, and all those activities are to be observed, data has to be recorded, and then only you will find sampling will be. Summarizing the data at the end of the each day. Now whatever you have collected the whole day, it has to be summarized. You have to conclude that during this period whatever samples have been taken, this is what the result is. And then evaluating and presenting results of work sampling. Then you have to evaluate that and present the results and see the study which was carried out was in order, was it the way it has been designed or not. Evaluate the validity and reliability data. Now this has to be evaluated, its validity and reliability, how far it is valid and how far it is reliable. Then we are talking here presenting and analyzing data, that data which has been presented and it has to be analyzed to ensure that the sampling procedure which has been done is in order. Then planning for further future studies. Now whatever you have done here, it will be going to be useful for the future studies. Whatever losses, whatever things have happened to us, the things which are not in order, or where the production is going to be lost, or where the economical factor is not going to be affected, that will set a procedure for the future. Now that procedure, now here what is, let's see how the procedure carries on. We are talking conducting the work sampling study. How do we conduct? So that work study conducting will be, here it is important in the outset that we decide on the objective of work sampling. The simplest objective is that of determining whether a given machine is idle or working. Our observations then aim at detecting 1 or 2 possibilities only. Now the machine is kept idle. In a day in 24 hours, the machine is working only 4 hours or working for 8 hours. So we have to take number of observations and that observations will be here. We are talking the center observations, left side we are talking machine working and machine idle. These are the information, this is the data which has to be collected, and that procedure will ultimately give you a work sampling study. Now we can however extend the sample model to try and find out the cause of stoppage of machine here. Now machine has suddenly stopped working. How it has stopped working? Maybe some problem with the light, maybe from some of the equipment, maybe spare, something like that. So that must be taken into consideration, and observations are machine working and machine idle, and then how much idle, how much working are to be taken. So then we are talking waiting personal for needs of repair supplies worker. So unless the machine is put into function, the workers are sitting idle, the time is being lost, and as a result that study will show us the sampling model how it is. Now further, how do we percentage of time spent on each activity? Why the machine is working? Here, time spent on each activity. There are a number of activities, and the activities here we have talking here: observations, machine idle, machine working, then cutting, boring, and filing. These are the issues here. So we have to see each activity, what's the time the machine is functioning or machine is not functioning. Each observation at each nodes I am talking here. The nodes are cutting, boring, filing, machine working, machine idle, and observations are taken at various steps, and then to be calculated as far as the sampling is concerned. Now the procedure here, how do we do it? Now we may also be interested in the percentage time spent by a worker or group of workers on a given element work. If a certain job consists of 10 different elements, by observing a worker at the defined points in the time, we can record on which element is working and therefore arrive at a percentage distribution of time he has been spending on each element. So as we have seen, it is not one element, there are a number of elements. So each element has to be studied, each element has to be taken into consideration, each worker who is spending time on each element or a group of elements has to be taken into consideration, and then you have to arrive at a percentage distribution of time which has to be taken for each element, and then calculate the whole results, and then you will find sampling study will be complete. Now making the observation. Now once you have done that way, you have to make the observations, and that observation will be here. Work study man is clear in his own mind and about what he wants to achieve. Now once he has taken observation, he is very clear. The person who is going to get the supervisor or he is very clear that his own mind and what he wants to achieve and why. So that study which he is going to have it is going to be useful for him for future. No ambiguity when classifying activities. They're absolutely very clear. He is very clear. There is no ambiguity at all. The activities have to be classified. Each activity has to be taken into consideration. Each element has to be consideration. Each worker has to take into consideration, and then observations to be taken at the same time relative to each machine here. So all those observations which are collected at various elements at various parts of the machine are to be taken into consideration. Analysis of results can be calculated readily on the record sheet. So once you have recorded the data, once you analyze the things, you can find out the results and then see how good things are. Possible to find out the percentage of effective time compared with the delays, to analyze the reasons for ineffective time for each worker or a group worker. Now here we are very clear. We have to find out what is the effective time, what is the ineffective time. So once you have taken number of positions at random, once you have classified the elements, once you have classified the workers into individuals or groups, then you can analyze the reasons that how much ineffective time has played the role or how much effective time. Now use of work sampling. Now whatever we have doing it here, work sampling, how to use it, what for it is there. So the idea is suitable technique can be used with advantage for widely variety of situations. What are the situations? Manufacturing and servicing. So those things must be taken, and that techniques must be taken into consideration and advantage with a variety of situations. We have got manufacturing, we have got servicing, we have got office operations, we have got low cost method used for comparison of efficiency, and then some of the useful working samples are. Now keeping in mind the various activities, we have to take into consideration, we have to design a technique, and we have to find out how effective things are here. That's the work sampling. Then some of the use of work sampling are to aid in determination of time standards and delay allowances. Now once we have decided, we have to take observations, we will determine the time standards. A product has to be redesigned, product at the time standard has to be redefined. A product which is working for 40 hours, probably with this study now you say it can take 30 hours only, or it may take 80 hours only. So that must be taken into consideration, and that must be decided, and those allowances must be taken into consideration to aid the measurement of overall performance. So keeping it all in mind, the overall performance of the plant, about the machinery, about the workers must be taken into consideration. Now to determine the nature and extent of cycles and peak load variations in the observation study. So Here again, peak load or the low load are all to take into consideration, and then they have to decide here. Use of working sampling. Now here the use is to study the time utilization by supervisors and estimating goals for supervision, to aid in evaluation, to assist in engineering economy studies, to appraisal of safety measurements, and for appraisal of function. These are the factors which are going to be useful for sampling methods are concerned, and then with that the whole thing can be redesigned, relocated, and things will work here. So keeping all this in mind, now here what we have discussed here, the lesson of allowance factors has given us a very overview of the various factors, allowances of each type, namely calculation of stand time, we are talking work sampling techniques, we are talking how to make use of various techniques for various operations, and then carry out the work study, and then decide, redesign the whole system, see psychological, physiological, the learning curves of all individual workers or group of workers, and then you will find the work study which is going to be carried out will be of great help to us. Thank you.